else have their form?
Already gave it.
I did electronic.
I did mine too.
Did she send it to you via email from you?
Meals.
Oh, probably a while ago, right? But last year, obviously last year.
Yeah, last year.
I did over the email.
10
I
days ago.
recall
It was only a
Camille
few days
email.
ago. I think it was last week.
Okay. Last week was the last year. All right, well, if you don't have it, don't worry, just go online and find the email. I do recall Camille email, yeah. But I'm also on the public records days, the sixth, so I don't know. One of them, it's two different boards. I know, but
On that four.
as Roosevelt
And it-
said,
Good for
one
you.
is, one is good.
Yeah,
One
that's
is
what,
good
that's
for
what
the, why
Camille
actually
said.
for all.
Camille said, because it's generic, you can apply it to any and all.
Okay. Okay, shall we get started? Are we good?
Yes.
Oh, wait a minute, wait, I gotta get an agenda.
Can I just
Yes.
say one thing?
Yeah, before we start, go
Yeah.
right ahead.
I just want everybody to know that the executive airport is just fine. I drove out there today by mistake. Put the car on autopilot and the brake and just drove.
And you made it run
And you
for a
filmed it.
time, look at you, James. Must have been
What's going on?
lying. Okay, we're gonna get started. Hello, everyone,
No.
and welcome to the January sixth meeting of the Infrastructure Task Force. Can you please take the roll?
Mr. Angeli, Mr. Burnett.
Here.
Mr. Grabsky,
Here.
Mr. Labrie,
Here,
Mr. Lamberts, Mr. Partington,
Yeah.
Ms. Rensko. Here. Mr. Walters,
Here,
Mr. Zelman,
Here.
and Chairman Mano.
Present.
Yeah.
Okay, you all have seen the agenda. It's a small in terms of numbers, but big in terms of issues, okay? Can I get an approval of the agenda?
move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, you've all seen the minutes. I took a look at the minutes this morning. I'm fine. Anybody wanna move to approve the minutes
Move to approve with or without correction.
with or without corrections? We have a correction.
I have a correction.
Ralph,
Yeah, it's more of a dressing up of the, on page 2, under new business, the third paragraph down.
okay?
Rather than be rewriting it, I'll say this, I'll correct it as I go, or propose the change as I go.
Okay,
Mr. Zeltman, instead of observed, indicated the word.
fine, indicated.
That the name of the committee, and then take out, went through a number of changes. And put after committee was changed,
Okay,
which meant it was considered a new body when it was. And then I put change name to rename to the ITFAC.
correct. That is a correct. Okay,
And that's all the damage I could do.
listen, that means making tremendous progress. Okay, with that correction, do I have a second? Second, all in favor? Aye. Okay, while we're on sort of the administrative things of agendas and minutes, I haven't seen Mike Lambix here for quite some time. Has he resigned?
No, so he did contact me via email. Unfortunately, he can't make it today. He's out.
Whatever, he's got a life. Does that unfortunately make 3 in a row?
No, that's
Good,
not.
he's okay then.
Yes, he's fine.
Okay. Okay. And Gerald sent an email that he had a prior engagement, so we're good on Gerald. All right, I asked because among other things, one of the, moving on to old business, follow up on the city commission. One of the questions that I was asked when I went to the commission to do our communication was, well, do you guys have quorums? I mean, a lot of boards don't have quorums. He says, have you ever not had a quorum? And I said, I do not remember a day when we haven't had a
You
quorum.
had it almost every time.
And that, the question was, are you active? I mean, the context was, what are you guys doing? Are you active? Are you sitting around? Do people come? I said, I have never remembered a day where we did not have a quorum. We're always active.
Oh.
So that gives you a sense of what the discussion was like.
You asked.
Actually, it was Glassman. Steve Gossman. And, you know, he brought up what we assumed would be the discussion, why do we need an infrastructure task force anymore? Haven't we been working on infrastructure for 7 years? And it's not an unreasonable observation for someone, and he actually reads the minutes of our meetings and looks at our videos. So I was a little taken back, but overall, the sentiment was, you guys have been doing a great job. And especially when I pointed out to them, you know, you need this kind of a committee, not only because we're doing what we're doing and but we are available to you. So who knows in the coming future, like water treatment plant, like the city hall. I mean, who knows in the future if you might need a group like this with this particular history and skill sets to advise you and give you recommendations. I think that won the day. I really did think that, especially Commissioner Beasley Lee Pittman said, yeah, okay. We need this with this kind of, you know, expertise, and we need to be able to call on them when we need them. So that was the good news. Bad news was it's for 1 year. And you know, you can't do this work in 1
They
year.
extended for 2 years. The 3 of us only got 1 year.
No, they're only extending it for 1 year. Am I correct?
No, 2 years.
I believe it's 1 year.
I was confused when I read though.
It's,
That
from
was
what I was told, it's 1 year.
1 year.
That's what.
That's what they said at the meeting. Now,
But that's not what it says.
where?
I read it and it says the committee was extended for 2 years. And I was pointed out as one of those who only have 1 more year to serve after February 18th.
That is correct. You, me,
And
Ralph, and you.
you too.
He's been on a long time. So you guys may be on your own on the second year.
When we get down to,
Oh, that's good.
when we get down to committee,
You get both done.
when we get down to comment,
Yes.
we need some discussion.
Right.
Cause I'm concerned a bit. You kick me off, but 4 of us gone.
At the same time. That's a big hit. But listen, I had this discussion with the city manager. And my understanding is 1 year from the city manager. And we'll know when we actually see the resolution. And I suggested to her, because the mayor brought this up. He said, you know, who's not gonna be on the committee? And I said, David Solomon did the analysis, whatever we may think about name changes, whatever David says went. And he said, who's off? I said, well, 5 of us. And he said, you too? I said, absolutely, me too. And he said, that's a problem, okay? Because you can't lose the institutional memory like that. So I wrote an email to Susan Grant and I said, listen, here's a suggestion. This is a concern, just change the name. Change the name, everybody starts all over again. And the commissioners still have the option of reappointing us or not reappointing us. I mean, we all, you know, we all know our commissioners who appointed us and whether or not they're going to reappoint you or not, maybe not. But they continue to have control, but at least it's a new name. She said, that's a great idea. That would work. Why don't you talk to the mayor? I said, I can't talk to the mayor. It sounds self-serving. So I'm one of the people who is aging off. It sounds like I'm trying to make a dynasty out of this, and I will not do that. So, but we need to talk about that from our perspective in terms of our work and communicating to them that this 1 year deal does not work.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't, I can't ask your people, you can ask me to keep coming to these meetings and, you know, 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, you can't get anything done. You can't have a long horizon. The staff can't count on us for, you know, to following through on stuff on a 1 year.
All the appointments were always 2 years.
2 years at a time, 3 max.
Yeah, so it was a total of 6 years, but
Correct.
2 years at a time.
Mhm. Right.
During our last meeting, we talked about that this group and infrastructure in general was an ongoing. It never goes away.
It never goes.
And maybe we should make that statement. You know, to, hey, I understand you're appointed for a year, but infrastructure is forever.
Yeah, I think we should somehow get across to them that, you know, this is the ongoing thing for the city. Yeah.
So, but the concern is not, the concern, I think, is the expense to the city to have these meetings, because we take staff away from what they're doing, and they come to the meetings and, you know, they, a lot of them don't speak, but when they do, it's important that we have them here.
Mhm.
And they sort of work, I believe, on their stuff while they're, you know, emails or whatever, so that's still good. But I think there is an expense. This is one of the things that John Herbst mentioned, that it costs the city to have all these committees and advisories, et cetera. And so I think that's part of what they look like, but you're right, infrastructure is forever.
But when we talk about costs, I know that the five of us that's leaving make more than you guys that just got here yesterday, but they're not getting rid of the committee, but we are being replaced. And that's the part that is not good for the city. To five of us leave here at the same time. And I know
I
that
understand that, yeah.
they, you know, I don't know how long it will take the new people to come aboard. We came aboard from nowhere and we had all of these presentations that show us that we learned from. Those are gone. The new people are not gonna have that. So if five people here trying to, who will be left? You'll be left, you'll be.
And Mike Lambert.
We
And
would not have
Jerry.
a quorum. You wanna know. In this room, at least, right now.
It's,
Well, we also have, there's two issues. One is the expense, one is the aging out, and one is three. One is the long-term nature of the mission, okay? And all of them can actually be resolved in a number of ways. I mean, I have always thought, to the expense, that maybe long-term, what we need to be, or what the city needs to do with us, is to make us a subcommittee of the budget advisory. A standing subcommittee of the budget advisory. It's one meeting, one liaison, and they'll do the operating budget and we'll do the capital improvement budget. Just an idea, brainstorming, if we wanted to combine that kind of, you know, saving money. The other thing is just make us a board, make the group a board.
Right.
Okay,
Instead of a task force,
instead of a task
go
force,
full on advisory.
yeah.
But you still have the restrictions on the consignment type.
No, if they turn around and make it a board, that's a new
Then we
deal.
start.
Correct,
And
we
we all
will
start
restart the
over.
clock, but the clock is also for the board members.
Yeah.
It's not in perpetuity, like
No.
they still have the,
well, we still
6
have
years.
6 years, with
Correct.
2 years increments.
Yes.
Every 2 years.
Yeah,
I mean, we can't stay forever. At some point, we
yeah,
gotta go.
no, of course, and I don't think that's a goal for us to stay forever.
No.
We wanna continuance of the services, whoever would be our replacement.
At least that would do it gradually.
That's more
As opposed to
gradual
By,
at
Yeah.
once, because there's no guarantee that whoever appointed you will reappoint. you,
That's
Okay,
correct.
you were appointed by Warren Sturman, I
Yes.
was appointed by Warren Sturman, guess what?
We have
He's
a
not
new
the commissioner
commissioner.
anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, we also have the problem that there's a new city policy that you can't be on more than one board, committee, et cetera, at a time.
Yes.
Wait a second,
one board,
and one committee.
No, I think they
No,
knocked the committees out too.
committee,
When
the committee is not
It
limited.
just, no, wait a minute, I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, maybe you know, they just changed the policy.
They
It's
did.
just at the end of the year. Cause
They
they didn't want everybody to be on multiple committees.
So you're on already.
Not, I'm off planning and zoning,
Oh, you're off.
I'm off planning and zoning.
Well, I would just,
Marta, you just are getting assigned to something.
The board,
and
it's been over a year, but it's different. I'm on a one board and one committee. So I don't
That-
have a conflict, but you're right, there's a new policy that you cannot be more than one board.
yeah, one board has been there, but there were no limitations
Because
on
we are committees and
But that's what I'm saying, and Marilyn says, no, they've changed it.
I may be wrong, but I
Yeah.
thought it was different. thought it was
because
the
I was
committees as
just
well.
They still
reappointed
keep on the path.
to this,
It's still on the path.
what I will be
Purple.
reappointed tomorrow. To this, I'm reappointed to the city
17th.
attorneys committee.
Committee.
I'm reappointed to city managers committee, so if they're eliminated it to one, how come they just put me on three?
I don't know. I could be wrong.
They would reappoint you for this committee on the 17th.
Can
We're
we,
gonna-
can we
we're gonna-
give
That's
an
what I
email
read.
or to David
Yeah.
Solomon and ask him?
So
Correct, I do that, no problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
17th is what I read. Unless I'm-
But the 17th, that's not a committee meeting. It's the 21st, the 7th and the 21st.
All right, well,
Jill, did you, what date did you say our reappointment, a reestablishment of the committee?
It is at the second meeting in January, on January 22nd.
22nd,
on the 22nd.
right,
Okay.
Yeah.
right.
So it must have been the 17th or something to make sure we got all the signatures and confirmation that we would still be there, and then for the 22nd, their vote and approval.
Okay. Well, yes,
I'm gonna ask you a question, and I was appointed by Steve Glassman on the last one. Since my appointment, I've not communicated with him.
And that's good.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure.
No.
So if he asks the question, what are we doing? Should I be communicating somehow with him since he appointed me, or? I didn't think so. Or should we as a group be sending out some sort of synopsis of what we're doing and reviewing? Other than the notes that we're generating?
additionally, we have tried to not do that. Because we don't want it, just because they appointed us, we don't want it look like we're doing their bidding
Absolutely.
on
That's
the
right,
committee,
girl. That's
on the
right.
board committee, whatever it is. Because once they appoint you, they can't get rid of you except for cause. With the
Okay.
one exception, when somebody new is appointed, is elected, they have 6 months to change all of their appointments. Okay?
Okay.
I mean, it's very complicated.
And
And you know, whenever I get these questions, I just get to call David Solomon and ask him, you know, what it is, because he's the keeper of all of these things.
But I don't think there's nothing wrong with you talking to your commissioner, we just don't do it.
Yeah, as a
Okay.
group.
It's,
you know.
it's no law that says you're not in violation of anything.
True.
I've,
But
I've,
it-
I've spoken with my commissioner, John Herbst, so when he asked, they'd be asking me a question
Yeah,
or something
that's the way I
in
do it.
particular, then I respond in a manner that doesn't pin our ears down. That's, you know, but it gives them a general information on what the consensus is on an item.
I just want this group to be of value to the citizens and frankly, to the engineering organization. Right? And so if Omar's and his team are trying to get information to the city council, maybe we can be that mechanism, right? To help to bring information from a different direction rather than them going direct.
Right. Well, they are obviously gonna go directly to the commission because that's their job.
To the
Tell
city
the commission-
manager, right?
Well, to the city manager, and the city manager, if she thinks it's good, she's sending it over to the commission. You don't speak to commissioners directly unless you're on an agenda.
Correct.
Okay, that's the way it works. But what we've done in the past is, especially with the budget, when they've made a recommendation to the city manager who does or does not put it in the budget, we've gone independently and said, you know, we support them in this
Okay, and
particular
I
project.
haven't seen us do that since I've been here, but I want us to do that.
We've done that in the
We-
past.
yeah, we
We've
have.
done that in the past, yeah. So in that sense, I think we're very valuable because the combined, I wouldn't call it firepower, but you know, they picked us all for our ability to make recommendations independent of the staff. So, you know, what they may think of as the staff is just, well, we're making empires here. And, you know, our thing is, no, it's not empires. You really need this. This is important. Yes, Peter.
So we're also still under a consent order or consent orders. And I really think, you know, we have a role in monitoring the progress on that, because I really hope this city doesn't go on continually being under the shadow of consent orders from the state. And, you know, to the extent that we can monitor that and nudge it forward, so much the better.
Yeah, I mentioned that to the commissioners, that one of the things, you know, maybe we made a little list of the things that we do. And one of them was, you know, monitoring the consent orders.
We have, I was telling them. I
Right
think
over the top.
You weren't here on that meeting.
Really?
but we're getting a new consent order for water and sewer, so that's a whole new thing.
A whole
for
new
I-
ballgame.
Well, you know, I wish we weren't, of course, because it's not something to be proud of.
No, but you know, based on the these charges in from the wastewater treatment plant.
Ocean outfall.
Are we gonna get a new one that wraps them all together or just one on that?
I think this is a new one, and it's the old one is gonna end on September 2026. And this new one is gonna be just for I&I.
Just for the I&I? Okay. So we're gonna be out of the woods on the original one from the original sewer break in 2026.
Yeah.
And we will have accomplished everything they required of us.
Yes.
But then we have another one on water.
Right.
We have a standing one on water.
Oh, that one, I believe is completed. That one was, I had to check with Chris, he's in charge of that one.
Could we, at the next meeting, could we like have a sort of an update
Yeah.
on the
and we
status
put
of
that-
all the consent orders? See where we're at?
You want all consent orders?
Let's go with all.
Okay,
How many do we got?
well, we got the one for water and sewer,
Yeah,
we got the one for water, and officially, we don't have the
We'll
other
do
one
one.
yet.
but
Right,
we
so
will
we
get
got
that.
two, right? And I don't know where the water is, but the water and sewer is supposed to be done 2020.
Didn't we
There've been
have-
some extensions, but yeah,
Okay, but didn't we have one with the River Oaks, stormwater program? When, I don't know, Rickman tore up the mangroves or something and,
but that was not a consent,
That wasn't-
that was a little section there that was part of the consent order, that was.
that was
completed.
part of the consent order.
Yeah, but it was just a very small part of the project.
Okay, because on next door, there's still what happened to the money from the consent order. They don't understand that it didn't go to us, it went to Broward County.
Right.
The money went to Broward County. Okay,
Chair Romano,
yes.
this is Nancy Gassman.
Oh, hi Nancy.
How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Thank you for letting me interrupt. The situation with the stormwater preserve was what's called a notice of violation. It's an NOV, which is a regulatory action from Broward County. This differs from a consent order, which is usually issued by the State Department of Environmental Protection or the State Department of Health. So the two actions are separate. So the notice of violation was against the city and against our contractor, whereas the consent orders are specific to the city.
Thank you for that clarification, Nancy. Appreciate it. Okay, that's good. But we need to have a sort of an update where we're at with all of them, because we told them at the meeting, that, you know, that's one of the things that we do is we monitor and make sure that, you know, we're making
We'll have
progress.
we'll have one for each.
Very good, very good. Okay, so here's the reality, guys. On January 22, they're gonna re-up us for a year. All right? Unless we make a big full court press before then to make it 2 years, it's gonna be 1 year. Now, but that gives us a year within which we can have this discussion and make some recommendations to the commission. And then they'll have enough time to absorb it and think about it. You know, maybe you can really do that at a city commission meeting. You know, have a big discussion about what's the long-term future, what do you need to do, why, da, 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 da. It was a boom, 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 let's get this done.
We could schedule a meeting with the commission
Right.
next year,
Uh-huh.
and then that would be an opportune time to bring those issues, things up. I know we learned our lesson, when they wanted me to go ahead and walk the police station.
Mhm.
And I walked and did a visual inspection, observation, and gave everything. I didn't have any equipment with me. I didn't have this or that, but I just went through and I found so many violations, like differential settlement. The groundwater leaking in the basement area, no fire, no fire door, rated doors, I'll just stop there. But I had a whole litany of items. And we did it the right procedure, went through to the committee here, and they all voted yes. The city manager was there and he took it and presented it to their, of course, after that, they had the voters, the public, voted on whether or not to have the police station, which they did. And so there seems to be inconsistency because on something else, they just went right ahead without having a vote with the public or anything else. But since then, I was trying to make other recommendations, maybe go to water treatment, even though I did the water treatment plant, but the wastewater plant or anything like that. But it's kind of like the need's got to be there, and they have to request us to do that.
That is true.
And it's,
I mean, no, and that, we do have a mission statement. And the mission statement is very broad, very, very broad. I mean, we could decide to do whatever we want in that mission statement, but us deciding to do it is not ours. It's really, it's better if they ask us to do something specifically. I think it's better if they ask us.
Gerald, what was the task force originally, what was the original assignment for the
Okay,
task?
here we go. The purpose. The purpose of the infrastructure task force is to review existing city infrastructure, including but not limited to, and that's everything, okay? Okay, that's that. Review and identify repair or replacement as well as funding sources and financing alternatives for these infrastructure projects and to receive public input. That was it. So that's pretty broad.
But was there like an incident that had happened?
Yes, the incident that happened
Was this the
was
sewage breaks?
the Los Olas sewage break that had the poop flowing. No, it wasn't. Yeah, I think it was the Los Olas one in 2017.
2017.
2017, there was poop flowing in the street, and that's when everybody got religion. And they established us. Yes, Peter.
Yeah, I think that's right. I was questioning in my mind that, but yes, it was around 2017 that all that happened. And everybody got very concerned, and that's why they wanted an infrastructure task force to plan what was happening, and the state was involved.
And that's when the first consent order was done, around 2017.
Okay.
I mean, it was a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we were on the national news, where you don't want to be, really. Okay, so we're gonna be re-upped for 1 year. And I think we're gonna keep this under the old business, maybe not at the next meeting, let's get over the hump. But we should have a continuing discussion on establishing a workshop, or at least a meeting, a conference, could be a conference committee meeting, okay? To discuss, the long-term future of infrastructure planning in the city, okay? So we'll keep that on the agenda, yes.
And Marilyn, I think that there may be a need here, and I understand 2 years, three terms, 2 years for each term. But we've got 4 people, y'all started at the same time, right?
Pretty much.
So things need to be staggered. We need
That's
to
a
figure
point.
out in some way where we don't lose 4 valuable people.
Well,
all at once.
let's roll that into our discussion when we have this discussion with the commission. I mean, because even the budget advisory board, I mean, that's another board that really needs to keep an institutional memory rolling, because when they lost Brian Donaldson,
Right,
wow, that was a loss.
it's a huge loss.
That was a
yeah.
huge, so that's the quasi judicials, and there are some boards that really do need that, but that's a discussion that we could bring up to them, but it's not only for us, it's for a number of boards where you might want to have an institutional memory rolling. Okay, we'll put that down on the agenda. Hello, Alan, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Okay, just an update, Alan. We're having a discussion about the following up on the city commission's decision to renew us for a year. Grateful and all of that, but can't do infrastructure in a year. We can't be doing this every year. And thank you very much. We're gonna let them do it for a year. And then during that year, we're gonna have a discussion amongst ourselves and perhaps, and certainly with you all, about long-term future. I mean, should we be a board? Should we be part of another board? There's gotta be some way to keep the institutional memory rocking and rolling instead of, everybody aging out at any particular time. But that's a big decision and a big discussion, and we'll have that in the upcoming year. Hopefully, when we've got some ideas put together and got some input from you, we might wanna schedule a meeting with the commission, either a workshop or a special meeting, whatever's the appropriate way, and have that discussion with them before the next year rolls around. Because you can't do infrastructure on a year. It's gotta be a long-term project, okay? Just bringing you up to date. All right, so the only item on the agenda is the new flood zone, the new FEMA maps. And who's gonna be doing that?
Good afternoon,
Good
Mark
afternoon.
Haggerty, I'm the floodplain manager with the Development Services
Well,
Department.
the appropriate person.
All right.
I have a little presentation put together, thank you for the committee for inviting us in to do a presentation today. National Flood Insurance Program.
Can you hear me?
Oh, you're. Please do. Click the presentation. The icon right up here. That one. Yep. All right, there we go. We're back on track. National Flood Insurance Program doesn't really affect infrastructure. It's more overall city elevations as far as new construction, but new infrastructure is affected by this. Because new infrastructure needs to meet what's called Class 4 floodplain regulations, which is an additional foot above general regulation. ASCE 2414 requires infrastructure to be, they're considered critical facilities to continue service. So there is extra elevation that's required for critical facilities. Okay, just some points. We're gonna give you an idea of what the National Flood Insurance Program is, what a flood insurance rate map is, and what the changes, how the changes affect the public and the city. We'll talk a little bit about flood insurance and then the community rating system, which is a flood insurance discount program for residents. And then we'll go over some statistics on how much flood insurance is in force and what the discounts are. First of all, the National Flood Insurance Program. Over 23,000 communities across the United States participate in the NFIP by enforcing floodplain management ordinances and regulations to reduce flood damage, okay? In exchange for that, okay, the federal government makes flood insurance available here in the city to owners and renters. It also frees up federal money for grants and disaster assistance. So basically, if we don't participate, we don't get any federal funding. So it's one of those things where it's not mandatory, but if you don't, then you miss out on all these other programs.
Would that be FEMA programs as well?
FEMA program, absolutely. This is a FEMA program. So if you are not in the NFIP, you are not eligible for all the things in the bottom paragraph there. Flood insurance grants, disaster assistance, and so on. So it's important that we stay compliant with this program in order to keep those federal dollars coming to fund infrastructure programs. Okay, the FEMA remapping process is a daunting one. As you see, this is all the information that they take into account. And I think you have a PDF of this that I sent over earlier, so you can refer to it later. And this is the process that FEMA goes through when they remap. Generally, it's 10 years. Every 10 years, we get a new map. Our original map, or the last map was 2014. And the latest map went effective July 31st, 2024, okay? So it's a 10-year period, that's why they try and remap, okay? The process of data collection can take up to 5 years just before it gets to FEMA from the consultants for the new maps. Once the draft is received by FEMA, they review it and create a preliminary map. Okay, once that preliminary map is finished, they hold community outreach. Okay, so for an idea for you, the maps went into effect July 31st, 2024. The preliminary maps came out in 2019, and FEMA held 5 outreach programs in 2019 throughout Broward County because the maps are issued on a countywide basis. So there were 5 community outreach meetings showing these maps to the public. And if you haven't been to one, I would suggest that you look out for these. We do promote these heavily. Go to one because you will sit down, you can give FEMA an address. They will tell you what your current zone is, what your future zone is, how much your insurance is gonna go up, whether you have to have insurance, and there's a bunch of different stations. So if you haven't been to one of these, then definitely look out for it. But since the new ones just went into effect,
One
yeah,
question,
The question.
can we ask questions during, or shall we let them?
we can do it.
Question.
Oh, okay.
Want to leave questions to the end or? during?
Well, I have questions at the end, but however the chair would like to handle it, if you want to do questions as we go along, that's
This is
fine.
a small,
Yeah, it's a small group.
have you got a question, or were you just asking process?
No, I have a question.
Okay.
There's a document called the Quick Guide Floodplain Management in Florida Division of Emergency.
Yeah,
Management,
them.
fairly freely available. And I just wanted to point out that says, with respect to flood zones, that it is not based on engineering studies. It is based, information may be provided by the US Army Corps of Engineers, other federal agencies. So this is, as I understand it, this was really the question, when they prepare these flood zones, it's not based on engineering principles, it's based on information that has come into them from various sources over the years, what flooded when and in what intensity, things like that.
Well, I don't, it's not, there is historical portion to that if you look at this. But this is right from the FEMA guide to mapping, okay? And this is a snapshot right from theirs, and engineering hydraulics and hydrology data is looked at, as well as LiDAR and all this stuff. So I don't know, what FDEM document you're looking at, but this comes directly from FEMA.
I think you guys agreed.
It may be that they, I don't wanna use the word dumb down, but sort of try to not overwhelm people with engineering stuff.
All I'm saying is, the maps are pretty seat of the pants maps based on what they have learned over various years, rather than going back to first principles and saying when it rains X amount in Y time, you can expect a certain amount of flooding. That's the way I see it.
Oh, I think I understand. Is it based on the projections for the amounts of rain, or is it just based upon historically how much more rain we've been getting?
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, from, my interaction with FEMA over the last 30 years and from theirs, it's all of the above. Okay, it's engineering, it's historical flood data, but they do rely heavily on the hydrology and the hydraulics, okay? Because as you see, as development takes place, and this is why they have to remap, the hydraulic characteristics of the soil, how much water can it hold changes because we stiffen the soil in order to allow construction, okay? And we do a lot of paving, and that becomes impervious. So, that is studied as, the flood elevation. So, it's a combination of.
All right, Roosevelt.
Before you
Sorry.
move forward, help me to understand when you said if the city doesn't participate in this flood program, they lose all the other benefits. So that kind of tells me that when you do participate, somehow you receive money from the government. And if you, when you receive that money, how do that help me? Who
Okay.
lives in a flood zone?
Yeah, we don't, as a government, we don't receive money. The Public Works Department receives money for grants to do infrastructure funding, to build pump stations, to build drainage. Okay, those are the type of grants that are eligible if we participate in this program. Okay, also disaster assistance, you know, there's not, everybody lives in a flood zone, so not everybody has to pay flood insurance. However, if a hurricane comes through, disaster assistance affects everybody, whether you live in a flood zone or not. So if we're not participating in that program, all that federal funding is not available to us.
Yes, Ralph?
Are they considering also the fact that over the decades that the groundwater levels have been rising? We have increased tides coming in.
Yeah, that's,
And all the existing percolation drainage systems are now becoming more ineffective because they have to maintain
Because they have a
18
head,
inches
right.
of height between there, so when they can't do
and
that.
that's part of the hydrology study.
So there's a plan for obviously at some point in time in different areas to basically try to convert them into a positive drainage where you have a hydraulic thing and they can pump out or pump down. Something like that.
Well, remember, stormwater and floodplain are two different things.
Right.
So, yes, but stormwater is a factor that's looked at for the effect of this program.
All right, I think we can move on. We good? Okay.
Okay, we were here, the draft firm and the preliminary maps. FEMA holds the community outreach. The first community outreach meeting kicks off the appeal period, okay? So if you don't like the map, if you don't feel the map is correct, there is an appeal process you can go through to refute or dispute the map.
Well, I get to, sorry. I mean, an individual or the city?
I'm going, that's the next bullet point. Here it comes. Here it comes. Okay, appeals must be filed within 90 days of that first meeting and must have technical data to dispute the preliminary maps. You just can't say, I don't like it. I'm not in the flood zone. I've lived here 30, 40, 50 years. I've never flooded. That's not gonna fly with FEMA. You've got to bring some technical data, an H&H study, something of that nature, okay? LiDAR showing you're above the elevation, you know, proving. And if you do that, you can do that. Now, mostly the big players in preliminary map appeals are either the county, okay, because it's a countywide issue, so they look at that. Or the biggest one is the private developers who really push back hard because it affects their bottom line on the elevations that they have to build. So they will really spend a lot of money on engineering to prove that certain areas in the maps are not correct, and they will appeal. And that's why it generally takes 5 years from the preliminary to the actual effective to go through the appeal process. Okay, yeah, it really is. Okay, so high-risk flood zone is known as a special flood hazard area, okay? If you live in a special flood hazard area, you've got a 1 in 4 chance of experiencing flooding over a 30-year mortgage period, okay? Okay. A special flood area is defined of having 1% chance of flood in any given 12-month period, okay? That's what a high risk is. According to
What's the
FEMA.
low risk?
The low risk is less than 1%.
Wait, I mean, the last year in Fort Lauderdale, we flooded 3 or 4 times.
And that's why it's a annual chance, because they used to call it, and they still call it, a 100-year floodplain. And that's very confusing to people because you think, oh, well, then I should only flood once every 100 years. But that 100-year floodplain works out to having a 1% chance per year. Now, does that mean that we're only gonna have 1 flood a year? Not at all. you might have 5. We've had 3 floods in the last 2 years that were affected. Now, does that mean that we won't have one for the next 10 years? Maybe, who knows? Doesn't, but that's what the average is. The 100-year floodplain is a 1% chance every year that you will flood. If you're that's what the definition of a special flood hazard.
You could see why people don't understand that, because they're sitting in their house and they flooded 3 times in 1 year. And this doesn't make any, I understand,
Absolutely.
but okay,
Absolutely.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay, so here's where the flood insurance comes in, okay? If you fall in that special flood hazard area, if you're in a high risk, if you have a 1% chance, annual chance of flooding, you are required to have flood insurance on your property if you have a mortgage. And if you own your property free and clear, you're one of the fortunate ones and you don't have to deal with flood insurance. However, if you live in that area or have been recently remapped into that area, you are not on the old map, but you are on the new map, you will be getting a letter from your mortgage company telling you flood insurance is now required since the remapping. So you will have to start to pay that.
Wow, okay.
Questions? I knew that would bring some
I
questions.
think with the new maps, and do you know, Mark, the percentage of the city that's now in a special flood hazard area? I think it's like over 60% now.
I've got maps coming up to answer that very question, okay? The determination that flood insurance is required for a specific building can be appealed, and that can be appealed by an individual if you want to do that, okay? And that's easy. If you have an elevation certificate for your home, okay? And that elevation certificate for your home or business shows that the lowest adjacent grade, which is the lowest point of the soil that touches your building, is above the base flood elevation. So an average base flood elevation here, we have them that go up as high as 13 here in the city and as low as 5. So if you pick 7 or 8, okay, if the base flood elevation on the map is 8, and the lowest amount of soil touching your building is at 8 or higher, then you can exempt yourself from that insurance requirement by providing an elevation certificate to FEMA through a letter of map change process.
Where do you get the certificate?
You would have to, if you're a newer home, 1998 or 99 or newer, we have them on file with the construction documents for your building permit. If you're older than that, we may or may not have them. You can contact me and we'll tell you if we have them. If we do not have them, if your house was built in the 50s, 60s, 70s, whenever, and we don't have them, then yes, any licensed land surveyor would put that document together for you. The cost is between $300 and $500 depending on who you contact.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
But if you think about the average flood insurance being about $1,400 to $1,800 a year, if you invest that $300 and you see that you're above, it's worth it. However, you know, you want to think about insurance anyway, because if you prove that you're outside that high area, your insurance will probably be less than $1,000 a year, and it's cheap protection. So we always recommend that you carry flood insurance, whether you're in the zone or not. I've owned my home for 30 years. It's not in a special flood hazard area. I carry flood insurance, sir.
What did you say the average price of flood
It
insurance?
depends. It depends a lot, but
Mine is a lot
Yeah.
higher than
Oh,
what you just said.
well, yes. It depends on your home. It depends on your risk. It depends on your elevation. There's many different factors.
Okay.
The highest amount allowed currently is $12,900 annual.
I'm not that high.
12,000?
$12,900 annual.
Some people are paying $12,000
Yes,
for
ma'am, they
flood
are.
insurance?
Yes, ma'am, they are.
Wow.
Yes, ma'am, they are, Beach.
Well,
And
I'm
we'll see
sure,
some
yeah,
We'll see some statistics at the end. I don't have individuals, but yes, that's the highest allowed by law right now.
right. And let me ask you a question. Does it vary between condominium buildings and single family homes?
Absolutely, they're two different things. The maximum payout on a single family home is $200
recent, isn't it?
No, that's always been.
Always been?
Now, for a condominium, it's called a Residential Condominium Association Building Policy, RCBAP. They double, they get $500,000 worth of money if you're in a condominium. Okay, so you can insure your building for $500,000 through the national program.
Okay,
Okay, and the rates are recorded.
okay.
Okay, so here's the question is, hey, what was the flood zone and what is the flood zone now? Okay, so if you look at the blue areas were the special flood hazard area on the 2014 maps. The pink areas are now all the new areas that have been added. As you can see, the areas in blue did not change. However, the pink areas, the new map, have expanded greatly throughout the city. Okay? The city,
And I'm on the website.
go back to that?
House. And
It's my house.
Can't figure it out.
no problem, and I'm happy to help you with that. That's what we're here for. You call us and we'll do a determination for you. We can send it out to you in
Okay.
a letter. That's not a problem.
Your point is high, apparently.
Okay,
They call it Coral Ridge for a reason.
Yeah.
right?
yes, once we started building away from the ridge, we started to have
Yeah.
problems. Absolutely. Okay, so
Wow.
the total acreage here in the city is 23,239 and roughly a half. Okay, in 2014, there was 11,311 acres in the special flood hazard area. Through the remapping process and all the above that we've already talked about in 2024, that raised to 14,800 acres. Okay, so we increased almost 3,500 acres of floodplain.
Geez, it looks like a lot more.
It looks like a lot more, but that's what the numbers are.
Okay.
That's what the numbers are. The percentage of SFHA used to be 48.7, and I think, sir, this was your question, Mr. Parrington, that it is now 63.7. You were absolutely correct. It was 48, now it's 63.7%. Okay, so 63% of the city now has to pay flood insurance program and is in a high-risk area.
Unless they're above 7 feet.
Unless, well, not 7, it depends on the area. That was an average. Your base flood elevation could be 5, could be 6, could be as high as 13. For your individual property, if you don't have an elevation certificate and you wanna know, you can call me and the flood team. That's what we do. We issue letters of determination to tell you, hey, you're in this flood zone, you would have to be above this to be out of the insurance
Yeah, but what's the
requirement.
magic number?
Depends on what if you live in AE 7, your number is 7. If you live in AE 9, your number is 9.
Okay, so it varies where, okay,
It varies where you are.
but there is
Sorry.
a magic number.
Oh, there's a magic number
That's
for
what it
everything.
has to be higher.
That's in the high hazard area. Outside the high hazard area, there's no numbers.
You may want to come back to this question, but this is what really confuses me about this process. So in this special flood hazard area, there is deemed to be a 1% annual risk. But the flood elevation area of River Oaks, you know about the history of that, is 5 feet. Whereas where I live, which to my knowledge has never flooded, it's 7 feet. So why does the 1% level vary so much across the city?
That's an excellent question, and not being an engineer, I'm not able to answer that question. That would, we would have to bring in a mapping expert from FEMA to be able to answer that.
It has a lot to do with the LiDAR and the elevation.
It's the LiDAR and the elevations, but again, that's something outside my area of expertise that I'm not here to.
Shane, logically, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right, you would think it would all go to that location.
1% risk in River Oaks.
You would think so, but
With
no.
a flood happening, 5 feet and above. But they're saying I have a 1% risk and I'm at nearly 7 feet, not quite.
I believe the flood insurance study breaks it into sub-basins.
It breaks it into basins,
And
that
looks
is
at the
correct.
basin almost as if there's a glass wall, which is far from correct, but that's how they do it.
That's how they do it, and also, Director Dodd just brought up a point, is that it has to do with your flooding source, okay? Some people are closer to a river, some people are closer to the Atlantic Ocean. Now, it's not based solely on that, but that is certainly a factor that is taken in to that. But, you know, again, not being an engineer and a mapping expert, that I don't want to give you misinformation.
Thank you so much.
So that,
Yes.
and that sort of brings me back to the point I was making at the outset of this. I feel like there's some smoke and mirrors going on in this process, but that's just my opinion.
At the federal level?
It's too, you know,
Black and white.
done by too much by gut sense.
Okay.
Okay, so the increase was 15% of the percentage from 48 to 63, 15% increase. Okay. So here's the buildings that were affected, okay? Now, this is the important statistic. The acreage is great, but if it's open space, it doesn't matter. You know, if it's a park or if it's a lake or if it's something, it doesn't matter. But the number of buildings that were affected is the important thing here. And as you can see, 13,853 structures are now part of the special flood hazard area. Okay,
All of 17th Street, all the shopping centers, all those shopping centers. Okay.
okay, so community rating system is a program that is voluntary. It's not like the NFIP, where the NFIP is, well, you don't get all this grant funding or anything else. We can be in the NFIP and not participate in the community rating system. However, the community rating system gives discounts on flood insurance policies. So it's very important that we do more than the minimum program requirements. And in exchange for that, you as residents and business owners get additional discounts, okay? So there's 3 goals for the CRS program: to reduce flooding and avoid damage to insurable property, to strengthen and support the insurance aspects of the program, and to foster comprehensive floodplain management, okay? Currently, the city of Fort Lauderdale is a class 7, which provides a 15% discount. So those of you who have to pay flood insurance right now, look at your bill. It would be 15% higher if we did not participate in this program. Part of this program is what I'm doing today: outreach to citizens and advisory boards to make these presentations to educate everybody on the program and how it works.
Have you made this presentation to the council of Fort Lauderdale Civic?
I have not made it to the council. No, I've just been here since October of 23, and I've made it to
Get 'em on.
an association.
On an agenda, yes, go on, James.
Which association?
It was the Lauderdale Isles Civic Association. I did that presentation. That's the only one I've done since coming on board. So you know, we are designing what's called a program for public information to increase this discount. It's a PPI, and we do get credit for that to increase this discount. And when we develop that program for public information, there will be annual events such as this for me to give or one of my staff to give presentations that we get credit for. So
Does it show on your bill that there's a 15% discount?
it shows on your declaration page, on your flood insurance deck page. You will have to look for that, and it will say CRS class. It will give the number, which is 7, and it will show you the discount percentage. Okay, that's on your deck page.
What, so City of Fort Lauderdale currently gets 15%. What's the maximum discount if we pull out all stops on the CRS?
Well, we would not be able to get to a class 1. And the reason that we would not be able to get to a class 1, which is a 45% discount, we would never be able to get there because of our density, okay? Density hurts us. Density and open space acreage. There's only 3 class 1s in the country. They're in the desert, they're in Nevada, they're in Wyoming, because they have so much open space to allow the floodwaters to percolate.
Now that
We
is-
don't have that here.
Really good reason to increase the open space ratio requirements in our zoning law.
Thank you, thank you.
But
I'm not
under,
gonna say that, but thank you.
under class 7, I'm sorry. Under class 7, what's the?
Explaining and
maximum
zoning.
discount?
Under class 7, you're getting 15%.
Is that the maximum?
No. My goal is to get us to at least a class 5, which is a 25%. Now, there's a possibility that we're working to a class 4, which would be a 30%. But we have to be careful because remember, we can get to a class 2, 4 or class 3, but to get there, we would have to put in very stringent building regulations that may or may not stifle the economic engine of the city. So there's a balance there that we have to strike. So
Can I stop you right now?
absolutely.
Right now, ladies and gentlemen. What is our job here? To make recommendations to the city commission. Okay, let's keep that under our hats so we let this gentleman finish his presentation. Thank you. Roosevelt, you had a question?
Just when we talk about density and getting to a level 2, 3, whatever. In order to create more open space, then we have to go higher. We can't go wide, but we can go higher. Is there a difference when it comes?
No, it's all about open space acreage. So if you go higher and you don't go wider, then yes, you will be eligible. There's open space. And that's one of the highest creditable activities. There's 96 activities in this program, and one of the highest credits is open space.
What are the other variables other than open space? that
Oh, like I
affect
said,
us?
there's 96 different activities. There's that's a whole 2-day presentation on itself, and that's actually a week-long course that FEMA gives to educate you on. One of them is public outreach, like I'm doing here, okay? The other is our building regulations, okay? We require 1 foot above FEMA's base flood elevation. That gets us credit, okay? Critical facilities that we were talking about. The building code requires 2 feet above. Our ordinance adds another foot. So if you're building a critical facility here in Fort Lauderdale as of December of 2023, you have to build 3 feet above that elevation, Madam Chair.
Water treatment plant is 3 feet above?
No, it was designed prior to the new ordinance. It's 2 feet above,
Oh,
as
rats.
is the police station.
Oh,
Yes.
rats.
So when I moved
2
here-
feet above is 2 feet above
It's
is a good elevation, and it was the maximum requirement at the time of permit. So we really, otherwise we would never finish any construction
Well, this
project
is
if we went
this
and
is a
assigned.
moving target, though. This is a moving target,
I-
because as sea level rises, this is
Correct.
a moving target.
Correct,
Okay.
sir.
So I moved here 22 years ago and had a survey of my property, listed my house at 5.5 feet. And then I think it was around 8 or 9 years later, I had to do another survey. And it was then listed at 4.5. So is that because of this 1 foot thing that you're
No,
talking about?
you must be
Absolutely.
talking about the grade around your house. Your house should not have sunk a foot. Now, your yard might, but your house would not, because it's uncompacted and it's gonna stay at the
But the
same
house,
elevation.
I mean, it was,
No,
What-
they
what-
took- they-
What year?
No, the datum changes.
It was
well,
probably,
2002 was the original, but
probably
when I-
NGVD versus
Yeah.
NAVD.
Yeah.
So
When
it's
the
a foot and a
datum
half.
changed.
It's 2 different
Different
vertical
survey.
datums, so it's a 1.5 foot difference between National Geodetic vertical datum and the North Atlantic vertical datum. NGVD is the old one, which was a 1.5 foot higher than NAVD, which is the current datum.
they changed.
Yeah, they
it.
changed.
Change
They
datum,
changed
it's
the
the same
base.
height, it's
Because-
gonna be a 1.5 foot.
Because the survey, I said, how come my house, he says, well, it didn't really sink, they just changed these.
Yeah, and in 2014, it changed from NGVD 29 to NAVD 88.
So that.
And that's that minus 1.5 that you're, or plus 1.5, whichever way you look at it.
Right. If
That's where
Nancy
that comes
Gassman is
from.
still in the internet air here. She did a whole big presentation on
Yes.
the change in that
I missed
particular
that.
base level.
Okay.
And that affected all the seawalls as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Correct.
Sorry, Mark, when you say critical facilities, is that including hospitals?
Yes.
So hospitals are now 3 above, not 2?
If you were to build or substantially improve a new hospital, it would need to be 3 foot above the base flood elevation
And that was as of December 23?
as of December of 23. Okay, that's local here
Right.
to Fort Lauderdale.
Right.
Again, the national
Typically it's
standard
2.
is 2.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's all part of the CRS discount program. And, you know, it just makes good sense to make sure a hospital or a nursing home does not have flood water in it. Okay, and here's what we were talking about. The city is actively working towards increasing the CRS rating. As a matter of fact, tomorrow we have an agenda before the agenda item for a budget request to bring in a consultant to help us work down to that 25% and possibly that 30% class 5 or class 4.
Can I make a suggestion to my
Yes, ma'am.
members? Okay, any of you going to the pre-agenda meetings on Monday to your city commissioners?
Tonight.
Let us discuss, oh, God,
It's
tonight. Let us make some, you know, please do this consultant contract so we can get the.
Yeah, it's on the, but it's kind of, it's in the consent agenda, so we don't anticipate it having any issue. It's part of a consolidated budget amendment that is going through consent agenda. So, so far as I know, it has not been pulled, so
Okay.
it's going to go through.
Excellent.
Do you have a goal but no timeframes?
Well, I can give you some timeframes. Unfortunately, by the time we bring the consultant on board and by the time we put the program together, and even after we submit to FEMA, it's 1 year after that. So it's gonna be 2 to 3 years before you can make any change to this because of the FEMA process. Okay. So that's the timeframe on it.
Question in my head is, okay, if I set the goal to go from 15 to 20% discount as phase 1, I'm a project manager. And then to do the 20 to 25 as phase 2, could I improve on my schedule?
We got one phase. We wanna go from 15
25.
to 25. And, you know, that's possible in this program. Instead of staging,
Okay.
we want to throw it all, and we're actually going to be applying for that 4, okay? Which is a 30% discount. We probably may or may not make it without having to make changes to the construction rules. And that's why, you know, we're gonna be looking at that over the next 6 to 8 months to see if we can get to that 4, we're gonna try. If not, we know that we can get to the 5 without making any more stringent construction regulations, right?
Can I ask, oh, I'm sorry, to continue.
No, I was gonna say, saving 10% on everybody who's got this insurance, that's saving the citizens of Fort Lauderdale a huge.
I got those numbers coming up, sir.
can
I got those numbers coming.
Can I ask you please to send us a copy of it, Alan? Can we get a copy of the consultant contract? That's the consultant who's gonna be doing this study to get us down to that number? Is that what's on the agenda?
No, that's not on the agenda now. Once the budget amendment gets approved, and if it gets approved, then the contract will become public and we'll be able to provide it to you.
Good.
Is it already solicited?
Oh, it's been, it went through the solicitation process.
We have one.
You
We have
can,
it.
you can look it up, yes,
Yeah, no, I'm
absolutely.
not, don't look
I
it
can
up.
send you the
want
announcement, yeah.
to Send it to all of us, please.
We can send the solicitation and then
Yes.
I don't know when it will be on the agenda for award, but we'll make sure you're aware.
Right, I
That
want, I wanna see what the consultant is doing. Because I'm interested, and I think we might all be interested in having some input into that.
Well, I'm glad you said that because we need, for the program for public information, we need volunteers and stakeholders from the community. So now that you just volunteered, thank you very much.
Well, I think all of us would be happy to volunteer to look at that
Fantastic.
solicitation.
Absolutely. Well, the solicitation is one thing,
Not
but
to solicit, the scope of services.
absolutely.
Thank you.
But I would also say that if it's already been solicited, we're not gonna be
Continue.
able to change.
Yeah, it's already been solicited and approved and
Oh.
accepted by the purchasing department, and that's why it's
But it's
on
still-
for a budget amendment. But I can send you what's been accepted.
Right, we
It's
would
not a
like to
problem.
see it, and if the, you know, yes, we'd like to see it.
That's great.
So we'll make sure you get those documents and then as it's moving forward, we'll work with Mark to get you updates of the final.
Yeah, I mean, I can come back and do updates, or, you know, we can send you memos, however you wanna do.
Definitely have your back.
Martha, so like,
Also, as part of the Fortify Lauderdale, we have that private property portion. Part of it is to inform the public about things like this. Because a lot of it is you need to know what's happening and how you can help support it. So we're definitely pushing more flood insurance and we're
private citizens can help us with our CRS.
Okay, Ralph, one more question.
Yeah,
Martha too.
Alan, I don't know if you read the Sun Sentinel today regarding the developer building buildings and
I
it's
did.
proposed, and they didn't get into very much technical information, but they said that flooding will be countered by like a wall lifting up or something like that.
Oh, you're talking about that building on Los Olas?
Yeah, that's flood proofing, okay, and that is a method of protecting a building, a commercial building or a mixed use building that's permitted by the code.
So it is permitted.
It is permitted by the code.
So, yeah, so
Whether I'm a proponent or a believer in that, that, you know, I have to stay neutral on because it is permitted by the code.
understood, but I'm not because of the potential flaws that can happen.
Well, I can tell you this, because this is public. MAT team, FEMA has a MAT team. A MAT team is a mitigation assistance team. They go into all these disaster areas after, and they look at what floodplain regulations worked, why they didn't work. Flood proofing, okay? 86% of the buildings that were flood proofed flooded. 86%, only 14 did not. Why? Because human intervention is required for a lot of flood proofing that is designed and permitted by the code, and people simply don't do it. Okay, so since I came on here in October of 2023, I've instituted an annual inspection program. If you're gonna flood proof your building, guess what? I'm gonna come there once a year. You're gonna put those panels up, and I'm gonna make sure that you meet all the requirements on an annual basis. So while it's still not 100%, at least we have something in place here on an annual basis that if you're going to design for flood proofing, you know that you're gonna have to work it if you live here in Fort Lauderdale. If you have a commercial building and you wanna flood proof it, you don't wanna raise it for whatever reason, okay? Then you're going to have to not only meet that standard when it was constructed, but on an annual basis. Have it tested and inspected by us. It's the best we can do as the regulatory authority.
Okay, Peter?
Thank you.
So let me get a question out about flood proofing and this is probably a question for Dr. Gassman. Hopefully she's still around. So let's say you know, my property, if I was able to not surrounded by anything else, and they've said that my 1% flood elevation is 7 feet. But if you read the city's seawall ordinance, the can't have a top elevation of less than 5 feet, but the top elevation of the barrier should not exceed the base flood elevation in the FEMA map, which is 2 feet, or 6 feet, whichever is lower. So in theory, you could build a seawall that was at 6 feet that wouldn't protect me at all, because that's allowable under the code. And I'm pointing these things out, not because I'm trying to find, you know, fault with anything. I find the whole subject extremely complex. I'm just grappling with what it all means for people's risk in the city, because I feel it'd be helpful if people understood their true risk.
Yeah.
All
If I
right, so
Dr.
Peter, this is
Gassman,
Nancy.
Hello?
Yeah, if I may, Dr. G first, flood proofing is not permitted on residential structures. Only on commercial or mixed use projects. And the why that is because egress, your ability to get out, okay? A commercial building is not occupied during a time of flood. It's not a place of refuge. So you are allowed to flood proof. You are not allowed to flood proof any residential building. So I'm sorry, Dr. G, I just want to put that point in there before you were going to respond.
Dry flood.
No, it's a great point. Thank you, Mark. I think what Peter is struggling with is the idea that we would limit the height of the seawall, which would allow for the structure to flood. But the idea is that your finished floor should be higher than the seawall. And so the idea is not that we're preventing floodwaters, let's say from storm surge necessarily from being able to access the house, but we don't want a typical rain event to wash from the seawall back into your house, which is why we limit the height of the seawalls. The lowest elevation of the seawall is to prevent the ocean water from flooding into the property. The higher level is intended to prevent water from the sky from flooding back into the structure.
But
the
Dr.
other-
Gaston, so go on, sorry.
And the other reason is that we have properties where we've been asked, can I build a 9-foot seawall? And the adjacent seawall is at 5 feet. It creates visual barriers, and it also starts to canyonize our canals, where you're starting to run through an aqueduct rather than through a canal and a residential property. So there was a lot of discussion when we were setting the maximum height. And again, it's based on base flood elevation so that people don't build seawalls and then backfill the property in a way that the water from the sky will run from the seawall toward the house.
But in the long term, the risk is from seawater, which is rising all the time. So if we were sitting here, and I struggle with this concept as well, if we were sitting here in 100 years' time, then these areas that are assessed currently to have a 1% risk, pretty much all of them would have 100% risk. They're all going to be flooded all year long, if some of the maps are to be believed. So the long-term risk, I think, is from rising seawater.
Yeah, and I think that Mr. Zeltman would point out to you that the risk is actually not from rising seas, but that rising seas will force the groundwater table higher, and that the roads will flood and then you will have no access to that property.
It's not a good future, Peter. No matter how you look at it, it's not a good picture in the future.
But I feel
So
like,
can we continue, please?
yeah,
We only have the room for a certain amount of time.
Mark, if you wouldn't mind, just, you were talking about how you're getting points for the CRS. Could you talk about the watershed plan and your current approval process?
Yeah, that is also part, you had asked the different activities. That's also a watershed master plan is currently under development. Our contractor is Florida Atlantic University. They have a draft that they've put together that we'll be submitting for credit. But that looks at the city in its entirety and the watersheds and how they interact, like Shane was talking about earlier, about not looking at those glass walls. The watershed is a wider, it's an area look, okay? Because we all know that the floodwater doesn't come running up to the city of Dania Beach line and it doesn't come into Fort Lauderdale. That's the way it was looked at before. So FEMA is giving us credit for widening our look, so that we have a watershed master plan under development now.
County?
It's for specifically us and how the other watersheds interact with our city. And that is currently in its final stages right now. And we will be submitting that. The grant deadline is March 31st. So we will be submitting that for credit. Once we receive the credit points and all the departments sign off, it will go to the commission for acceptance as an official watershed master plan.
And that
And then
helps
will
with the
allow us
points.
additional discount, give us
Right.
points for more discounts. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Is that what you wanted me to talk about, Nancy, or any more?
Yes, sir, you've covered it.
Thank you. Okay, flood insurance statistics. This is very interesting, okay? Total number of policies, 34,764 structures are covered. Remember, if we weren't in the NFIP, none of those people would be eligible for flood insurance, okay? So we need to stay compliant, very important, okay? The total premiums annually, $16 million, almost $17 million are generated from those 34,000 policies, okay? The CRS discount, somebody asked me the question, there's your numbers. $2.5 million is currently being saved at a 15% discount. We get to 25 or 30, look at the numbers, okay? That'd be a substantial increase in the amount of savings to citizens through this program, okay? The average, okay? The average is almost useless because, you know, some policies are 14,000, some are 12,000. But the average policy discount, that's the only thing I can do numerically, is currently $72 per policy annually, okay? Here's the big number. $9 billion worth of property is being protected.
For $16
Annually.
million.
Okay, so we have to look at it that way. For $16 million, you're getting $9 billion worth of coverage, so.
But going back to a statement you made earlier, the maximum this insurance will pay out will be $250,000.
Correct,
So if you got a $7 million house on the water,
correct,
250 is not gonna cover a lot.
correct. And, you know, there are major flaws with the National Flood Insurance Program, which is why Congress only has been putting Band-Aids on this. It literally takes an act of Congress to change this program. And due to the turnover in our representatives and all the changes, nobody wants to take ownership of this program and redesign it. So it was built in 1968 and has been basically untouched since then. There have been some minor changes in 73 and 92, but as far as long-term overhaul of this program hasn't happened, okay? It has to happen. FEMA will tell you it has to happen. Why? This program is $28.5 billion in debt at the federal level. They've paid out $28 billion more than they took in policies, okay? And that grows annually, every time that we have an event. And this wasn't part of my presentation here, but it is part of my public presentation. 90% of all federally declared disasters include flooding, 90%. It's by far and away the most expensive natural disaster that affects this country on an annual basis.
It's not forest fires out in California?
Forest fires are next to, it's so small, it's unbelievable.
That's
And
nice.
that's in my public presentation and not here. I compare flood to fire. You're 4 times more likely to experience a flood than you are a fire. Yeah. Okay, so insurance in force, $9 billion, okay? So $16 million investment, you get $9 billion worth of protection. You wonder why the feds are $28 billion in debt, but you know, those are the statistics. This is an important program. We have to be able to protect the residents and the businesses here with insurance, sir.
Well, but should we be allowing people to build on spits of land and barrier islands and all of those places in Louisiana that, you know, they're gonna flood regardless? I mean, that's the problem.
That's the problem, and that's the difficult part of, at the federal level, why they haven't been able to overhaul this program, because as a property owner, you have rights to develop and build. As a government, you have to protect citizens, so, you know, we could spend days, weeks, months, and years on that discussion.
Roosevelt?
Sir?
Back a ways, you talked about the restraints that could possibly be put on construction in order to get us down up whichever way it is.
It's
to
it's
the
down but up.
30%, to that 30% discount level. What's gonna happen when you put those restraints out and we start to achieve that 30%? What's gonna happen to the poor little guy whose house does not match the restraints?
And that's why we right now are not promoting that, because it will affect individuals in a negative way. We can get to that 25% without going crazy with our regulations. But if we want to stop all development, stop all additions, stop all new construction, we can get you 2 or 3 or 2, no problem. But that's why, you know, we have these meetings. That's why we need to be prudent in the way that we go about these programs, and we have to have a balance, okay? So from looking at it and making the analysis, and the consultant that's coming on board is gonna confirm that we can get to this 25%, that's really probably the sweet spot for Fort Lauderdale. And then if we can do some other things without affecting those regulations to get to the 4, we're close. We're close. But you know, again, FEMA likes to move the goal line on us. So, you know, they change the program every couple of years and then we fall back out. So we are confident we could be a solid 5 even with the program changes. We might get in as a 4, but if they change the program in 2 years and take some points away, then we're back to a 5. So that's why our goal is technically a 5.
Thank you.
So what is the magic number in open space that we'd have to get to?
That's what the consultant's gonna come on and tell
He's gonna
us.
tell us.
I mean, we have what we have.
Right.
Okay, so we're gonna get the maximum credit, and that's why we're bringing the consultant on board, so they can really study and say, you know, well, you might not have taken credit for this, but we think we can bring it in for credit, but they're not making any more land.
Right, but
So-
my question really is like, and this is from my own experience. We have open space requirements. We have side yard requirements, front yard requirements, rear yard requirements.
That does not count,
What do you mean that doesn't count?
doesn't count. The only
Why
thing
doesn't
that
it
counts is open space that will never be developed.
Side yards don't get developed.
Yeah, it doesn't count, it's private property.
Oh, so it's gotta be public
Doesn't
open
have to be
space.
public property, but it has to have a deed restriction if it's private property that will not be developed.
Okay,
Like
so
that
side,
was farmland.
Parks.
well, parks for sure.
Yeah,
We
but
have more parks.
yeah,
would be
parks for sure. And I gotta bring something up when we talk about infrastructure here, parks are great for open space. There is a parks bond that is going forward, that is moving with a very aggressive plan
I was
to
gonna say glacial.
add buildings and other structures to these parks, which will in fact, in turn, be reducing our credit because now buildings are going on that open space. So here's the balance we're talking about, guys, okay? That's what we gotta balance. So everybody wants to have these beautiful facilities in the parks and they're great. But remember, now we're gonna be taking away from our credit for insurance
It's
discounts.
not only the acreage of the park, it's the acreage of the park that is not occupied by
Correct.
structures.
Correct,
Wow.
correct,
Holiday Park.
correct,
There's no way to go forward now.
correct. So, you know,
Lot
we'll be
line.
losing there, but what we're losing there, we are now gaining through, I heard you were on the planning and zoning board,
Yeah.
okay? Well, planning and zoning requires open space for these big developments.
No, but
That's-
they waive it. They waive it.
If they stop doing that, if they have a deed restriction in, then we can gain all that private property
Yeah,
open
but-
space. And this is why we're bringing the consultant in, so we can put this whole plan together to bring it before the bodies to make recommendations to make these changes to the code.
Yeah, but the yard requirements, let's just use those for an example. They are, you can't build on a side yard or a front yard, once the
Understand that.
site plan is done, okay? And you've got these yards, you can't build on them.
You can't
But you
build
say
on-
you also need to get them deed restricted?
Correct, to be eligible for open space for the program.
All right, so I understand that.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
You would just have to add to the site approval process a deed restriction on building in those
Correct, and I'm
areas.
working with Ella and Jim on that
Oh,
right now,
alrighty,
as
very
a matter
good.
of fact.
I
Yes,
understand.
absolutely. It's all part of the program and part of this consultant to move all this forward.
Right, so
these
the idea
activities.
about waiving side yards from the required 60 feet to a lousy 20, we're killing ourselves. I said that, you
many
didn't
feet?
say that.
What did you say?
Thank you.
I know what your constraints are. Okay. Very
All
good.
right, total claims, 5,002 claims have been paid, okay?
In what
100
time frame, darling, in what time frame?
And this is the time frame since the city became part of the NFIP,
Okay.
which was in the late 90s, okay?
And we've only paid out 5,000
5,000
claims?
claims officially.
Well,
5,000
we
claims.
just had a big flood in River Oaks.
Well, remember, these insurance statistics, unfortunately, since we're dealing with the federal government, are 2 years old. So these do not include the April 23 flood,
Okay,
okay? These are as of 2022,
okay.
okay? For as far as claims paid, the insurance policy information is current. However, the claims paid lags way behind, okay? So $166 million was paid out.
Okay. Wow, this has been
I,
terrific.
I just wanna say, thank you, I think.
Now I know why he's on so many committees.
Right, exactly.
Very informative. Although I am one that don't like to leave a
Yes.
meeting until I fully understand everything that was said. But I'm gonna leave here today. I'm gonna make an exception. And I'm gonna leave here today without understanding everything that was said.
Well,
Your presentation was excellent.
thank you. I appreciate that and I appreciate that feedback. But Vicky has my contact information. I will leave my business cards.
Yes.
You know, you can call me and talk to me at length at your convenience anytime. I'll leave them right here. Pick one up on your way by.
Sorry.
Call me anytime.
So we can let this gentleman.
I was gonna say, many of us have connections to our local community.
Oh,
organization.
he's on the next agenda at the council, for sure.
Okay, I mean, do you want us to get you invited?
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. And from there, Gregory, from there, once the heads of all the civic associations have seen this, they will then ask him to come out.
That's what I was
You may be
saying.
the head of one of your civic associations.
Yeah, a lot of, like I said, I have been asked to do only one since coming on, and I did that in October. That was the Lauderdale Isles Civic Redevelopment Agency. And there was 60 or 70 residents that I did this
Right, they have
presentation.
their own little water district out there in Lauderdale Isles. That's
Yeah.
probably why.
Yeah, they've got some different concerns more than most because of the North Fork of the river that affects them.
Got it. Okay, Peter, one last question, please.
Again, I think this is for Dr. Gassman. So as I understand where they prepare these maps and the data that they use, they look at it from two aspects. Can be flooding from rivers or water courses, or it can be coastal flooding. And we are obviously right at the coast here. Do you know the predominant approach to our flood elevation levels? Is predominantly driven by river, water course, canal flooding, or is it flooding envisioned coming from the coast?
Yeah, Peter, I don't know the absolute answer to your question, but one of the things that changed about the way that FEMA and NFIP was approaching actuarial rates was to consider the distance a home was from a potential water course. So that's been one of the things that has been now factored into the actuarial rates, that if you live close to a water body, that your rate will be higher than someone who lives farther away. So they're certainly looking at those things, but I don't know the absolute answer to your question.
Yeah, a little bit more on that. We talked a little bit when Director Dodd brought this up before, the flooding source. In the flood insurance rate map, you will look at a map and it will give you a blanket elevation. That is strictly for insurance. That is to be used in conjunction with the flood insurance study. The flood insurance study actually lists the flooding source for everybody in a high hazard area. So that is available on the FEMA website. It's available from us, the flood insurance study. So any individual place you look at, you can look at the flood insurance study. You can download it from the FEMA Map Service Center and look it up yourself, or you can talk to us and we'll tell you what your flooding source is according to the FEMA maps.
Okay. We good, ladies and gentlemen? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
We'll be
Thank
in
you.
touch. Be in touch. Okay. Next on the agenda and last on the agenda, CIP financial report. I think I got a memo that We're not doing that this week?
So the water break report will be provided next month.
Next month, okay. General discussion and comments. And I don't assume we have anybody from the public on the line?
No.
Okay, general comments, ladies and gentlemen? Any issues you want to bring up? Okay, I want to thank Greg, no, not Greg, Gerald Angeli. He was the one who actually asked us to put this on the agenda. Was you? I thought it was, okay, sorry. I want to thank Peter for asking us to put this on the agenda, and I have a feeling this is not the last we're gonna be involved in this. Yeah.
Do we know why it's going to the budget amendment, this?
Because they're
study?
looking for the funding to send out the contract. Yeah, explain.
I don't know exactly on that one, but typically you see how much you need to pay as part of the solicitation. You won't have to put more money into it depending on what it is.
So we know already the numbers, like there was not enough funded, like that?
I'm not involved with that solicitation, but typically in order to award the contract, you need to have all the funds in the specific project or the.
Yes,
account.
that's my question.
So they might have had the money in an account, but they need to move it into a specific account in order to award the contract.
Dr. Gassman, do you know the answer to that question?
No, I think that Alan's response is generically correct, is that you have to have the money in place. If the contract came in too high, they would have to move money, or if they had funds available that they needed to move it into a specific fund. So we don't know the specific answer.
Okay, but this particular contract, will it be administered by Public Works or will it be administered by another agency?
DSD.
Administered by DSD.
DSD, okay, that's good to know. Okay, DSD. Did we get any answer from? Oh,
Yes,
please.
Mr. Solomon did respond and he states this topic will be brought back to the city commission conference meeting for a discussion.
So they have not yet made a decision on limiting our ability to be on multiple, all right. So they had one decision, they're gonna have another, one discussion, they're gonna have another discussion, see how it goes. All right, thank you very much. Okay, thank you all for coming. Next meeting is the normal meeting.
Everybody turn.
Whatever, it's the normal meeting.
I'll be in the morning.
But I wonder how much we can pay for this study.